I was so nervous on this bike ride back because my eyes were watering like crazy. My nose was running. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. First of all, we aren't wearing makeup today because our skin is and has been going through it, which we'll get into a little bit later in this video. But I missed you guys last week. We did not upload a video last week and had multiple reasons why, but I just want to say that this leap of faith that I've taken, I've shown you guys previous videos of why I'm out here, which, you know, I'll link them down below, but I had really just came out here on faith, not necessarily sure what would happen. But things are starting to reveal themselves. Man, I just can't wait to share it with you guys. But just know, God is doing his thing, okay? And it's even further confirmation that I was supposed to come out here, and I'm just so grateful that he is slowly showing me, as I knew he would, because I had faith that he would. I just really can't wait to share, but I know that there's going to be more to share, so I'm going to share as much as I can in maybe 1 or 2 videos later once this season is completed. Nevertheless, speaking of breakthrough, I don't know if it's going to be in the title of this video quite yet, but because I did not know what I was supposed to be doing out here, I took the initiative on my own to create mini goals for myself of like, this is what I want to learn, this is what I want to experience, these are the things that I want to take part in, things like that. And so I wrote a whole list when I first got out here, and one of the things that I put on my list was that I wanted to experience hobbies that I could take home if I enjoyed them. So what I did was I went on Google and I typed up what are some hobbies that, you know, you could pick up as you go through life, whatever. So I just Googled it and I came across this list of hobbies, and I told myself the ones that stick out to me, I will write them down, and as many as I can accomplish while I'm out here, I will embark on those things. So I have a list. I have on here gardening, reading, dancing, painting, woodworking, baking, knitting, pottery, and swimming. Now, do I feel like I'm going to be able to tackle all of these while I'm out here? I could, but I don't think I want to. Some of the things I will save for when I go back home. But of these things, I accomplished 2 of them out here. And the first one that I decided to do was painting. I found an acrylic painting class that would be 3 hours long, and I would have an empty canvas. And what stood out to me was not anything that it offered, but the pictures, the paintings that the instructor had done. They just looked so vibrant, so colorful, so pretty, and it sounded like it would be fun. His main goal for the painting classes, according to the ad and things like that I found, was that he really just wanted people to enjoy themselves and that it would be therapeutic. Me, on the other hand, I was just trying to see, do I like to paint or not? So I'm like, okay, well, let me go ahead, check it out, things like that. So I WhatsApped him, we set it up, and then I got a bike ride out there. I get there, and what immediately caught my attention was just how beautiful everything was. Going into there, he had so many different pictures of, they were big canvases, small, medium, and they were all along the wall. Like, he had them everywhere, and I was like, oh my goodness. And they were so detailed. You can tell that he really enjoys what he does. He was such a sweet guy. His wife was there. She was sweet. They were just really humble, sweet people, and he was very knowledgeable. So when I got out there, he already had the canvas set up and he had the paint already sitting out. What I did not know was that he had in mind that I would be copying one of his already painted photos, one of his simpler photos, which it was a picture of an elephant. So when he started showing me how to paint, he started drawing an outline of an elephant in order to give me guidance on how I would do it. But I wasn't trying to do that. My goal was to paint whatever I felt like painting, which he wasn't like wound up about that. What he told me later was that he assumed that I wanted to imitate one of his other paintings because I was really doing it for the sake of therapy. And I'm like, no, I'm actually trying to be creative out here. I'm trying to figure out what I want to paint and draw and all that stuff. So he asked me like, well, what do you want to paint? And I'm like, I think I want to paint a black woman with an afro. And he was like, oh. He immediately was like, okay. And he scratched whatever he did and he started showing me how to do the foundation of a face where you just draw the lines and then you create a box, and then you have like these prisms where you can put the eyes and the lips and things like that. So he was really showing me how to do that. From there, I started drawing it on my own based off of what he showed me, and he helped me out here and there, like maybe you should put the eyes closer here, or make sure you put the nose here. But he made sure to give me enough space to be creative on my own, which I really did appreciate. So the things that he did was he went and formulated the colors that I would need, because you have to mix paint in order to get the right like skin tone colors or the right foundation colors in order to put more opaque colors on top of it without having the pure canvas bleed through. So I did record a couple things, but I didn't get the fullness because I was trying to experience it on my own. But I did have like a time lapse, but it was so fun. I really enjoyed myself, and for majority of the time I was just vibing out. I didn't really know what the end result would be, but I was like, I think I want this color to be here, this color to be here, I want her hair to be brown, I want this to be this. And then after I did the foundation color, I went onto the ground where he was showing me how to do splash paint, where you can like flick the paint brush and then the paint go onto the canvas. And I picked the colors that I wanted, and then I put some of the paint on her hair, some on her lips. After that, he showed me how to put the paint on the canvas and then lift the canvas up so you can have this dripping effect, and I loved that. I enjoyed myself with that too. And then after that, we let the paint dry in the sun, and as we were waiting for it to dry, we started talking about just painting in general and being out in Bali and his family, and really down to earth guy. He's been doing painting for so long, and he has gotten so good at what he does, and he sells painting, and I'll leave his info in the description box. But he was such a sweet guy. From there, after we let the first layer of paint dry, then he helped me put the canvas back onto the stand, and I started painting like the main colors, like the contouring and the highlights. And I told him, I'm like, now I'm not a makeup artist, but I know about contour and highlights. I know where to put the stuff now. He was like, oh, okay. I was showing him like, this is where I believe these colors should go on the face. And he was like, very good. And then he showed me some pointers about how to get the inner corners darker to give dimension, and, how to darken the sides of your lips in order to, make it protrude and things like that, and underneath your lip. And by the end of it, I was so surprised with what came out. Now, it ain't perfect. My picture is not perfect by any means, but I was so surprised to know that for the most part, I had painted this picture and drew it by myself in 3 hours. This picture was not bad. For my first try, I've never painted anything before, and it gave me confidence to consider it once I got back home, which, by the way, he expressed that he was impressed as well. So he told me to keep in touch, and if I do go forward with it at home, to continue to contact him, ask him for help, and then also to show him my progress. So it was a great time. I really enjoyed myself. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say that acrylic painting for me was a 9. And will I do it once I get home? I pray I have enough time to really continue on, because that is definitely something that I want to embark on once I get home. So that was a success, and I'm so happy about that. Now, from there, next on the list for me was swimming. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, my expectations for swimming, they did not get met in the way that I thought that they would. And that is so funny, because painting is so linear. You know what's gonna really happen, and I exceeded my expectations in the painting. Swimming, however, proved to be more of a challenge than it was fun. And so I would actually say, now that I have gone through it before I can get fully into it, swimming should have been more on a skills list rather than a hobby list, because the thing is, I don't know how to swim, or I didn't anyway. I didn't know how to swim prior to going into swim class, right? And obviously that means that I would be building a skill, not necessarily a hobby quite yet. And so I went into this expecting for it to be fun and lighthearted and, having a good time in the water, feeling the breeze and all this stuff. Like, I'm expecting it to be like super calm, and child, no, that was not it. So let me backtrack. Right after painting class, I started looking up swimming classes, and I found a few of them, but one that stuck out to me was a swimming class that was offered 5 days and 2 hours per day. It was an adult swimming class, because every swimming class that I kept looking up, they were focused primarily on children. But thankfully I found this class. I figured in my mind 5 days would be plenty time, so I WhatsApped the instructor and I told him what dates I wanted to do this swim class, which would be the first week of September. And he's like, okay, yeah. One thing that I noticed was that while I told him I wanted to do the 5-day deal where you do the 2 hours per day and it'd be 5 days for this week specifically, he kept trying to get me to do a smaller package, which was weird because then that meant that he would be earning less money, but he was trying to get me to do less days. So he kept saying, well, maybe you could do the 3-day 45-minute one. And I'm like, no, I want the 5-day 2-hour one, because in my mind I'm like, I need to make sure I know how to swim once I'm done, and I want to give myself optimum time just in case I make mistakes and all of these things. And he's like, okay. I was like, okay, that's a little, maybe he has a lot going on this week and wants to make sure that he isn't overworked or things like that, but he didn't say no, so you know what I'm saying. And he did briefly mention that no one else had booked this week yet, which, by the way, his class is supposed to be up to 5 people, but so far I was the only one that booked this week, and so technically I would be the only one, so it'd be like a private lesson that I was getting instead of the classroom setting type lesson, which would to me be a better deal. So I'm like, yeah, I definitely want this since nobody has booked it yet. Fast forward, first day. It took about 45 minutes to get out there, which I had no idea because I didn't really factor that in yet. Finally got out there. I met him and he's very sweet. And the first day was pretty self-explanatory. It wasn't anything ridiculous. It was really him showing me some things or helping me to unlearn some things that I had learned. One of those things was, which I feel like a lot of people either learn this or learn not to do this, but he was telling me that a lot of people have learned to cup their hands like this in order to swim, to keep the water from coming through. And he was telling me like that's actually not correct, that you're supposed to have your hand relaxed. I can't remember specifically what he said about it, but obviously it's supposed to help you swim better. It's a way to keep your body from being tensed up, and then also you swim faster or something like that. How he demonstrated it to me was he told me to put my hand relaxingly on my knee, right? And then lift it up. And that's pretty much how comfortable or how open my hand should be, which was really cool because I'm like, okay, this guy really knows what he's talking about. Yeah, that was crazy because I feel like everybody and their mama has learned that you're supposed to cup your hands. Like, that's like what people know, you know what I'm saying? But another thing he taught me, which I felt was more of a my ignorance thing versus a myth that has been debunked, is that you're actually supposed to breathe out of your nose as you're in the water versus holding your breath. Now, I just want to clarify, guys, I technically never knew how to swim, so just understand that I really had limited knowledge on this. So yeah, those were some of the things that he was teaching me, how to do breath control, making sure that you're breathing and having rhythm while you're swimming, and then he was showing me how to float. And the first day concluded with me learning how to float on my back, which was a huge success to me because, I mean, I technically learned a little bit when I was a kid, but I mean, I hadn't done it in so long that I almost felt like I truly don't know anymore. So that was a success for sure. Day 2, however, child, listen, I would say that day 2 was the hardest for me. I'm not gonna say I expected it, but when you're learning something, when you're gaining a skill, it always technically works out that way where it's like a pattern. You start off at the basics, then it gets really tough towards the middle, and then you find success at the end. And so day 2 was him really trying to introduce the strokes to me. He introduced breath strokes, he introduced the what is it called? Freestyle, doggy paddle, and things like that. The goal was to see which ones we could focus on the most. While it's definitely possible for me to learn all of the strokes, everybody's body is different. Everybody's muscle memory is different. You know, it takes longer prefer you to learn some strokes than some other people would or than others. So he was really just trying to see which ones can we focus the most on based on the ones that seemed the least challenging for me, because we wanted to still gain as many strokes as I could in the 5 days that we had for me. So this was the introduction to these strokes for me, which the one that I did the best was the one on my back, where I'm just kicking my legs up, you know, like this, and then I'm just doing this with my hands. So that one I did successfully do, and I think that the main reason why I did that one so well was because I learned how to float the day before. But every other one, I was struggling, child. And then he was trying to also teach me how to come up out of the water mid-swim, and that was something I truly have never done before. And so that was a struggle in itself, because, you know, I would come up from the water and then I would sink, and then I'd have to try to get my stroke back together. Listen, I was a fish out of water in water. It was a mess. This particular day was us still learning how to, for me, be a student, for him be an instructor for me. And so leaving, it didn't feel like as much of a success as the first day, which is to be expected. On the other side of things, this was day 2 of my hair being wet, me being in chlorine water for 2 hours straight, and I started to feel like I was getting a tad bit fatigued. We'll get further into that because this was only day 2. Day 3, on the other hand, this day I would say was day 2 part 2. Things got better, but a lot of things were still the same. It was really like the push day. We're halfway through. We have to determine which strokes are going to work, which strokes are going to be left alone, you know, and I can learn them later on my own time. We really focused on breathing this day, and he was also showing me some of the things that I was struggling with. One of the things was he kept trying to tell me to keep my head down in the water, because the problem was I kept looking at the wall as I was swimming, which made me not perform as well. I would start to sink a little bit, and he's like, no, you have to keep your head down. You need to look at the floor. And if I wasn't looking, another issue was that I kept closing my eyes in the water, which he had told me to wear goggles in the beginning, but I took the goggles off because he would demonstrate strokes and the goggles would be foggy, and so I couldn't really see him demonstrate, and then I felt like I wasn't performing well. So I'm like, screw the glasses or screw the goggles, I'm gonna do this without goggles. So, but the problem was I kept subconsciously closing my eyes, and so he kept telling me, keep your eyes open because you have to look in the water. So this day was me looking in the water, or trying to, for that matter. And then also he was trying to perfect the way that I was doing my legs, especially with the breath strokes and the breath strokes on your back too. He was trying to teach me how to do the frog leg thing, where you turn your leg out and you do this or something like I'm sure it's on the video somewhere, but that to this day is still a struggle for me. I understand what he's telling me to do, but my body has to catch up with it. And this day was a workout, for lack of a better description. It was definitely me realizing that it's gonna take time for me to gain these memories, because it's sort of like when you're being told to rub your head and pat your stomach, or rub your stomach and pat your head all at the same time. Obviously, you're being told to do multiple things at once. And then if you are not used to being in the water, you're also trying to breathe or not breathe in the water, and you're trying not to drown. So I'm trying to keep my eyes open, do my hands right, do my shoulders right, do my legs right, turn my feet out right. I'm trying to make sure I'm looking at the ground and not close my eyes. Like all of these things at once. Obviously, as time continued, I was having small successes, but I still had some work to do, which I was still confident that the next 2 days would definitely improve me. Day 3 was like an extension of day 2, but it was small successes here and there. But on the other hand, me leaving from day 3, on the ride back to my stay, my eyes started burning so bad. And I can only equate it to when I was like, 16, and I was in this chlorine pool for like 6-7 hours straight. And then I got out, and as soon as I got out, I would say like 10 minutes after being out, my eyes were burning so bad, to the extent where I woke up the next day and my eyes were swollen. And I was so nervous on this bike ride back because my eyes were watering like like crazy. My nose was running. The only thing that would soothe my eyes was the wind, and I could tell it was because it was drying my eyes out. Obviously, my eyes were getting irritated to the chlorine, and because he kept telling me to keep my eyes open this day, I had more exposure to the chlorine throughout the day, so it was bad. Now, it wasn't as bad as when I was 16 because it had only been 2 consistent hours, but it was enough to have me like, all right, the next day, wear you some goggles. You cannot play around. Outside of that, my skin started to peel, especially on my nose area, on my forehead, and it was starting to get really dry. This was also day 3 of my hair being wet. The thing is, you're wet in the pool, and when you come home, you have to wash your hair. This was day 3 of that, so my hair felt like, I would say 85% of the time, my hair was wet for 3 consistent days. So whew. Nevertheless, day 4 came around. This day, he introduced me doing longer laps versus me doing the width of the pool. He started having me do the length of the pool. That was cool because I didn't know that I had the confidence that I could go that far, but it definitely gave me the confidence once I realized I could. So that was so cool. Then also, of course, he was helping me to perfect some of these strokes. We definitely put off to the side freestyles. Freestyles are cool, and I definitely wanted to learn them, but for me, I was still trying to gain the basics of make sure you do your arms and your legs to the extent that I could not incorporate also the torso and be able to succeed knowing that I only had a day and a half left, right? And with freestyles, you have to use your torso, you have to use your shoulders and just more parts of your body. And I was struggling to float with freestyles because of that. So we tried it a little bit, then we 86'd it. I just concluded I'm gonna learn that on my own some other time. So we quickly learned that I know how to do doggy paddles significantly better than breaststrokes and the back breaststrokes, just because I can float better, I go faster, and I can easily lift my head up to get a breath versus the other strokes. This day was really just trying to perfect what I had learned. I definitely wore my goggles, and I think that that was a bigger reason why I succeeded so much better than in the previous days, because it was one less thing to worry about. I wasn't in my head like, make sure you keep your eyes open, because it was that much easier to keep my eyes open. When the water would splash, I didn't feel like I needed to close my eyes. When I came up for water, I didn't keep my eyes closed to the extent that I couldn't see how far up out of the water I was. I was able to keep my strokes more uniform. So day 4 was a big stride from day 3 and all the days prior. And I think the beauty of day 4 was that I left with my eyes not burning out of its sockets. So then we have day 5, the long-awaited day 5. My hair dry, skin dry, eyes feeling better, but my lungs are sore, my body is tired. And immediately he was like, since this is day 5, this is the last day, I will not be getting in the water with you. I am just going to give you drills and you're going to do them. And one thing I had mentioned at the beginning of day 5 for him was like, I feel tired. And I had been telling him here and there, but day 5, I felt especially tired. And he had told me like, well, I tried to get you to do smaller sessions. It's so funny. He was like, the main reason why I was trying to get you to do smaller sessions is because it's overkill to do 2 hours a day for 5 days for only one person. I would not recommend doing that. This extensive course is for multiple people. You doing a private course, you don't really have as much of a break because I'm only focusing on you. And I'm like, oh shoot. But anyways, day 5 to me was really just, I would say it was my favorite day, because not only did it truly show me just how much I had learned in this period, but also I think that seeing that my instructor was confident that I had learned how to swim and that he seemed pleased helped me to realize I need to be more pleased with where I'm at too. I knew that I wouldn't be perfect. It was still only 5 days, and your body still needs to develop the muscle memory and you have to practice. But to gain the core skill and to be able to perfect it later was my main goal. By the end of day 5, I'm not gonna say I was perfect, and I think a lot of that was because I was very fatigued. I was struggling breathing wise. I was running out of breath quicker and things like that. So I wasn't doing laps as much as I could. Not to mention he was giving me drills, okay? He just kept hashing them out. All right, take a breath. Let's go again. Child, 2 hours straight. I was dog tired. But I had such a great time just having this teacher-instructor relationship come to a close and realizing just how supportive how knowledgeable, how affirming, just how great and talented this humble instructor was. It really made my experience so much better. I give this experience a 9 out of 10 as well. I don't know that I would have experienced it and enjoyed it as much as I did if I would have had other students with me, which I don't say that to say that I didn't want nobody else around, because there were people all around. Like, there were people walking by and all that types of stuff. I know it looks secluded on the videos, but it was like a coffee shop right across the street. People was all around, but it was, you know, more tailored to me. He had more time to focus on me, have patience with me, figure out what I needed, you know, things like that. And to gain a skill, that's the best way to learn, to be honest. You don't have to worry about an instructor diverting their attention to other things. So I really enjoyed myself. I'll always keep that experience in my heart. It's something about working for something versus just enjoying something that made that experience so much better. Now, child, after everything, I literally took a bike straight from that place to the mall because I needed to get me some skincare and some hair products or something, because I was dry, skin peeling, face irritated, face burning. I'm talking, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I was neglecting my skin throughout the week. It's just that all this chlorine, it drew all the moisture out of my face, out of my skin, out of my hair. My hair in particular was duller than usual, because just my hair color period looks a little dry sometimes. But, you know, then I was keeping my hair in these twists, because if you know anything about locks, then you know that if you're doing the retwists, which is where they like palm roll it in order to get your roots tight, water can undo that and then you'll have the poofy roots, and I didn't want that. So I kept these twists in throughout the entire week so that I can keep my retwist in for as long as I could. So I couldn't wait to take these twists out by then. So I knew I wanted to do a deep conditioning with my hair, and then I wanted to find a face mask. So I went to the mall. I knew where to go get skincare, but I did not know where to get hair care. I had been to this mall a few times, so I knew to go to this store called Sociola, I think it's called. It's like this big store. It has like low-end and high-end skincare, and I knew it was on the first level, so I went in there. I grabbed 2 face masks, nothing serious, because I didn't want to introduce too many new things to my skin and then have myself break out or something, or have it even more irritated. But I knew I wanted a hydrating mask, and they had a big wall of like hydrating masks or purifying masks and things like that. But I just found a couple that, you know, said what I needed it to say. While I was in there, I did pick up some more glycolic acid, because I saw on TikTok a while back that if you use glycolic acid under your arms, like you take a cotton pad, put it under your arms, it helps with like perspiration, or not the perspiration part, but the BO that comes with it. So I wanted to try the hack, and it actually works. I was running low, so I came back to the store to get some. Almost couldn't find any, but I found 2 on an end cap somewhere, and so I grabbed them. I'm like, cool. And then also, one thing I forgot to mention was, alongside of my skin peeling really bad, I had this random pimple underneath my lip. I have a dry skin problem normally, but I don't normally have pimples, and that's how I could tell that my skin was really struggling based off this chlorine water. I could tell that my pores were trying to secrete oil more than normal, and so one area was secreting more oil, and then one area was just dried out, and I'm like, child, my skin is going through it. So the glycolic acid, I also figured I'd use a little for my pimple that I had. Next, I was trying to look for hair care, and obviously I'm black, so I knew that this one would be a tad bit harder, but I didn't think it was going to be this hard. Granted, I didn't go to anywhere but this mall, but because it's an all-encompassing mall, I mean, it has a grocery store and all this stuff, and then on top of that, it's a more touristy mall, so they expect for people of all walks of life to come to this area. I expected there to be some inclusion in places, like maybe, you know, I felt like I could find what I was looking for. Needless to say, I started in Sociola and realized they don't even have hair care products. So I started guessing, like, where should I go next? Next thing in mind, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should go to Sephora. So I went into Sephora. Now, do I go to Sephora at home to get any hair care products? Not at all. Not only is Sephora expensive, but I've never heard of Sephora carrying like hair care products that I need. But I figured, let's try it out. Went into Sephora, immediate fail. They didn't have anything that I needed. Like, they had Olaplex, but for the price, child, no, I was not about to pay that. I felt like if the prices were a little bit lower, which I knew it's Sephora, it's gonna be expensive, but I felt like if maybe the prices were lower, I would have considered trying some of these products, even though they didn't sound like they would work for me. But because it was so expensive, I wasn't even gonna try to work with it. So I did leave Sephora. Then I walked along the entire first level, didn't find anything else. Went to the second level, didn't find anything. Third level, didn't find anything. And right before I figured I would not find anything for hair care, then I remembered, oh yeah, there's a ground level, and the ground level has a pharmacy. So I'm like, I'm gonna go down to the pharmacy and they should be able to have something there. So I went to the ground floor, checked the pharmacy, and they had a small hair care spot. It was sparse. They didn't have any mousse, which mousse is not going to be hair care, but I learned with my loctician that to style my hair, sometimes mousse helps with the frizziness and things like that. So I knew I would eventually want to style my hair, so I was looking for mousse, you know, but I couldn't find that, so I'm like, okay, whatever. But I did find a hair leave-in conditioner mask type product. You know, it was cheaper. I don't really need a mask other than this initial time to get my hair back rejuvenated. I don't want to build up in my locks, but I did need something to start my hair off right. I got the mask, and then I saw some oil. Would I have gotten it at a beauty supply store? Absolutely not. I would have grabbed something else, but this was all they had, so I grabbed this oil, and it was cheap too. And then because I couldn't find any mousse, I saw that it was like this frizz taming hairspray. I grabbed that. Did I have confidence in it? No, not at all. But I grabbed it and said, who knows, you know, maybe it can help, you know, with the styling process just a little bit if I use just a little bit. But if all else fails, I could rinse it out, start over. I was about to leave when I noticed the grocery store across the way. I knew it was a grocery store down there, but I wasn't even really thinking about it for hair care products. But I thought, let's go ahead and check it out since we're down here before we leave. And child, why was the mousse in there? They had mousse in there. I've been in this grocery store before, but I've only been to the grocery portion of the store. But I went to the other side and they had a little bit of skincare, but they had a hair care little spot, and it was about the size of the hair care spot in the pharmacy, but they had mousse. Granted, they didn't have a lot of mousse. They had one mousse that said that it had conditioning in it, which that sold me, okay? For me to be out here, as long as I can get something. Before I left, I did eat me some pizza. It was okay. Pizza's alright. Then I came home, did my hair in the shower. So I just did the mask after I washed it, then got out the shower and I started my skincare. I started off with the micellar water. I put a little bit of glycolic acid on my pimple area. From there, I used my mask. I really did like that mask. Even after it dried down, it still gave my skin a nice, beautiful sheen to it. I already had this Laneige lip mask that I use as lip balm, honestly, but it's really good for moisturizing your lip skin. After I put my mask on, sat for 20 minutes, played a little Sims game. Then I took the mask off and put my moisturizer on. It's the Equate brand, nothing crazy. And that was really all I needed. And from there, I mean, we're here now. My skin has gotten a lot better now. My forehead was peeling for what? I would say like a week and a half after swimming, and then my nose is finally back to normal. My forehead, I still feel like I'm gonna need a few more days just because me using the cotton pad after I wash my face anyways. I noticed that when I get to my forehead part, I always get like peeling skin on the cotton pad, so I know that I'm still peeling in that area. Even though in this clip I didn't show my body peeling, now that time has gone on, my body is starting to peel, like on my shoulder here. So, you know, I'm still hydrating that area. Skin coming off now. Okay, but I'm shedding, and that's not only because of the chlorine, but because after the chlorine, getting on the bike, the sun beaming on my dry skin, I guess it's like a sunburn or something like that. And SPF, it works, but I wasn't putting it on after the pool. So that's my problem. As far as my hair goes, it is more moisturized than it was during that week, but I do feel like I'm gonna do another mask once I wash my hair again. But yeah, I guess I'll leave it here. This video is probably gonna be a little long. So with that being said, I love you all so much, and I'm so thankful for your support, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Bye.
Yeah, that's the meaning of freedom in art.
Yeah.
Make whatever you want.
I always mess up on this side.
Feel good?
I think I'm done.
I think you're done too. 50 laps. You did?